Hi everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about the recent forays of big business into the blockchain and what that means, the implications, and importantly the execution, how these attempts were handled. So in recent weeks, we've seen companies such as Adidas, Nike, Kickstarter, Ubisoft, and even medium-sized game developers such as GSC, the developer of Stalker, make forays into cryptos and NFTs. And a lot of it has been met with a significant amount of backlash for various reasons for each of the projects. Much of it, being environmental concerns, but also concerns from a lack of understanding of what is being done with the blockchain or what the companies are attempting to do. So I wanted to take the opportunity to put my thoughts out on what these companies are doing, how it benefits or doesn't benefit the crypto and blockchain movement, and what maybe could be done differently. So I'm going to start with Ubisoft because this one is a bone of contention for me. And they recently announced a few NFTs this month in December for the Ghost Recon game. And you can earn these NFTs by actually playing 600 hours of Ghost Recon, and the NFT, from my understanding, is sort of a proof that you've completed this action, which ends up with you having the NFT. The NFT it lives on the Tezos blockchain, which is proof of stake, which means it is a lot less environmentally strenuous than other blockchains such as Ethereum or Bitcoin. And that's one of the concerns that a lot of people have had with Ubisoft doing this, and that does allay that. But going beyond that, there is the question of why. NFTs, blockchain, it's all trending now, and a lot of companies are just jumping into this for the sake of it. And to me, it feels like this is something that the Ghost Recon team is doing. They're getting into this for the sake of it. And it's a little concerning considering Ubisoft's history with blockchain investments. They're an investor in Animoca Games. They seem to have gotten quite hands-on with the Tezos blockchain, having become a validator themselves. And to just do something like this, it really doesn't make sense. Aside from maybe it being a cash grab, probably the idea is, if we give this away for free and then people resell it, we take 2.5%. That's a little extra money into Ubisoft's pocket. But the question arises as why? Why would you want to buy this in the secondary market beyond hype? So this is essentially it's a glorified achievement. What is the purpose of this NFT existing that couldn't be handled by existing technologies? And to answer this question, we need to understand a little bit about what is the dream, essentially, that NFTs are selling in games, and how games can make better use of NFT technology. So the dream that, having assets, game assets as NFT sells is this idea of ownership. That, if I acquire, let's use this helmet as an example, that if I acquire this helmet, I essentially own that asset, not Ubisoft. And, this is one of the big concerns with big companies getting into this is they might give you the NFT, but do they still, or can they find a way to retain ownership or control over the visual implementation of that NFT? And to put it very simply, ideally, in the ideal world, if I own this NFT, it exists in my wallet. It doesn't exist in Ubisoft servers. And yes, somebody can copy it as this person is, put here in this article, don't tell anyone I copied this for free. But the idea is that I can take that asset and I can reuse it elsewhere if a game allows. So, for example, if me having this NFT means I don't just own this image, but I own a representation of the 3D model, and that 3D model comes in the NFT as part of a universal file format that wraps around character mesh heads. I can go to Counter-Strike and I can use this same NFT there. I can go to Call of Duty and use this same NFT there. And that's when these things start to have value. Right now, it's really just, okay, I played 6 hours, I got this NFT, then what? There's no utility, even from a DeFi, CeFi standpoint, you can't stake this. And so it's understandable why there's a ton of backlash on this. You can't even display this NFT in a trophy room. So if all this is it's a glorified achievement, why couldn't this have been done using existing achievement technology? Instead, it was made as an NFT, essentially as a land grab or a cash grab, just to be able to say that, we're doing something like this. And grab some headlines. It's also probably an experiment on Ubisoft's side. I think they're putting this out there and they're looking to see what people actually do with it. Yes, people are going to complain, but they're probably putting this there just to see the people that are interested. How many are they? How many are they going to mint? How many people are going to do this? How many people are going to put in the 600 hours to get this NFT? And they're probably putting that 2.5% royalty, which I guess is not that much unless this starts to sell for crazy amounts, just so that they can track the movement. If that really was the intent, they probably could have gone for a lower amount, but I guess they wanted to make it worth their while. But again, if they are giving away NFTs for achievements, there's better achievements that could have been chosen and more creative ways, I think, to make use of those NFTs. Again, even something as simple as being able to bring this NFT into my Steam VR home. What might have been interesting is, for the NFTs to have some kind of additional non-tangible benefit. So, for example, if you own this NFT, perhaps it gives you access to exclusive skins, or it gives you some additional income in the game. I'm sure the game is an in-game store. You've ground out this NFT, and maybe for the next year you get 100 credits or 10 credits a month or a week or something. Something that makes it interesting to own. Or you get to participate in some kind of community or group that contributes to the development of the game. Something that makes sense to connect to the NFT. And the next project I'm going to look at, again, I mentioned earlier, the developer of Stalker 2, they canceled their NFT plans, again, after receiving a tremendous amount of backlash. This was a little bit more interesting, but again, understandably, I feel that the community probably wanted a bit more depth to this. The idea here was, and here in the article they say, GSC Game World announced that it would be auctioning off its NFTs, also known as expensive receipts. With the current implementation, they're not wrong. And the idea here is that, from my understanding, owning the NFT means that you could have your game put on the heads of the NPCs. This is not a bad idea. Again, the number of NPCs that you can put your face onto is a limited resource. And, selling that right as an NFT, sure, that's an interesting idea. It's an interesting way to raise money for the game and create extra revenue. But it's a pity that it was met with such negative backlash. But at least they're being creative with the way that they're making use of NFTs. This is actually a project that I would have liked to have seen pick up. Again, I guess the main question is, once you own that NFT and your face has been put into the game and you transfer that NFT, where is the value? And this is kind of the idea, I think, that gets lost with a lot of these projects is, at the end of the day, part of the purpose of an NFT is to hold value. And it can hold value in different ways. Much like a weapon, for example, in World of Warcraft, can be sold for real-world currency in black markets. That's because that item in itself has value, and it can be difficult to get, or it comes in some sort of limitation. And so the same thing needs to apply to items that are actually meant to hold value, NFTs. If I buy this and I want to get rid of it in a few years, what is the reason that someone will want to take it off my hands? If there's not an answer for that, then why doesn't it exist in a traditional technology? If I don't have the capacity to take this item and use it in another way outside of the game, why is this item an NFT? And this is something that blockchain games are still struggling with and trying to figure out. A lot of it, of course, comes down to these games being play to earn, and so the NFT component interacts with the currency component, which in itself has value. But when we start thinking about it outside of that ecosystem, it really comes down to, why does this item hold value? And if it holds value, I want to be able to track that item. And that's what the blockchain does. The next project I actually want to talk about is Kickstarter. And again, this one had a lot of backlash, and I based on my understanding, I'm happy to see that Kickstarter is pushing ahead with this. And I think part of the reason that there's backlash is, looking at their language, there's a lot of assumption here about readers knowing what that means. And, let's look at it a little bit. So today we're announcing our commitment to a more open, collaborative, and decentralized future. For most Kickstarter users, they're not even going to know what that means. As a first step, we're supporting the development of an open source protocol that will essentially create a decentralized version of Kickstarter's core functionality. This will live on a public blockchain and be available for collaborators, independent contributors, and even Kickstarter competitors from all over the world to build upon, connect, or use. We think bringing all that we've learned about crowdfunding since 2009 to inform the development of a decentralized protocol that will open up exciting new opportunities for creative projects to come to life. In the coming weeks, a white paper will be released outlining the technology and plans for the protocol. That's great. I'm in crypto, I'm in blockchain, I'm in NFT. I know what this means. A lot of people are going to read this and it's going to fly over their head. And I think Kickstarter could have done a better job of diving in a little bit deeper about their plans on this, and that might have saved them from a lot of backlash. If you still haven't figured out what's going on, again, my understanding of this, and I think it's quite exciting, Kickstarter is essentially a platform where you put your project out there, and if people believe in it, they will purchase different tiers, and if you receive a certain amount of funding, you get that money, and the project goes ahead. There's a lot going on in there that works phenomenally with smart contracts. The entire Kickstarter process of me committing money to this project and the project developer delivering on that, or getting that money and meeting certain goals. A lot of that right now is probably managed partly by software, partly by people. That could probably be simplified with smart contracts. I put my money in, I lock it into a smart contract, or I lock it into a blockchain product, and that becomes unlocked when certain milestones are met. And that just doesn't refer to funding goals. This could actually be applied to project goals. And I'm just spitballing here. I don't know if this is what Kickstarter has planned, but you could potentially create micro DAOs per project. So if you're an investor in this project, you essentially become a part of the DAO of that project. And the DAO has to agree on the developer, the project developer, project maker meeting certain milestones to get funding released. And essentially it turns the backers into a board of directors, which Kickstarter couldn't implement or couldn't enforce prior to being a blockchain product. And again, Kickstarter hasn't said that this is what they're doing, but I can imagine that this would be a really phenomenal way to hold project makers a little bit more accountable, because instead of having Kickstarter needing people to manage these projects and them needing to keep their team size at a certain size and protect different aspects, they can delegate a lot of this into smart contracts. It'd be really interesting to see how they go ahead with that. But initially what they're doing, which I think is still interesting, is they are basically separating Kickstarter as a company and Kickstarter's technology that allows them to do this. And the technology, again, from my understanding, they're spinning that off into a DAO. And by the way, if you want me to go more in depth into what Kickstarter is doing and what this all means and kind of dumb it down a little bit more, please leave a comment below. I'd be happy to make another video on this. But essentially the technology is being put into a DAO, and that DAO will be open source. And so if I live in a country that, for example, Kickstarter doesn't support, and I want to set up my own Kickstarter, I can make use of this technology and essentially launch my own Kickstarter and put in my own backend in my country, and become a client of the DAO, who will then use the funds to develop the technology further, and Kickstarter is becoming their first customer. So I think this is really interesting. It'll be interesting to see how much ownership Kickstarter will retain in the DAO of the technology, and how much they'll sort of make available to other people. Essentially, putting it really simply, what Kickstarter is doing is they're taking an alternative route to effectively listing this on a stock market. What they're doing is they're using the blockchain as an alternative way potentially to do an IPO without really doing an IPO, because what they're offering to quote unquote stockholders is completely different from what you would get as a stockholder. And that can be good, and both a good and bad thing. Obviously the bad thing is that because it's not being managed by a government, there's no oversight. And so you really have to rely on the reputation of the company. But, again, they're doing this on the Celo blockchain, so proof of stake, environmental concerns are really not a major issue. And I think it'll be really interesting to see what they do. And it's great to hear if this really is the direction that they're going, that even with the backlash, they're doubling down on it. So, it'll be interesting to see. I'm really curious to see Kickstarter's approach. Finally, Adidas and NFT. So just yesterday, or today I think, Adidas launched a new NFT project. And I'm struggling to understand the meaning of this. So they've partnered, I think, with CryptoPunks, and they are doing this whole NFT into the metaverse project, which was launched at horrendously expensive prices, 0.2 ETH, which is about $765. Despite that, it did sell out. raising almost $22 million to Adidas. And yeah, it was made in partnership with Bored Ape, Punk Comic, G Money, not CryptoPunks, Punk Comics, and the idea, from my understanding, is that if you own the NFT, you get access to special physical goods, like a hoodie, tracksuit, worn by the Bored Ape that Adidas owns, and as well access to upcoming digital experiences, as it says here in the article. The NFT also seems to be very exclusive. They offered 20,000 of the NFTs to people who already owned Adidas original tokens, G Money tokens, Bored Ape Yacht Club, Mutant Ape Yacht Club NFTs, and Pixel Vault NFTs. And again, like the article says, a lot of these are already really hard to get NFTs, so this really feels like an exclusive event. And my point being, this really feels like just a corporate money grab beyond a little bit of merch, which they're saying will not be available till 2022. Hopefully they'll follow through and actually come through with that. Ironically, I'm guessing probably have to purchase that extra merch, because taking 0.2 ETH, $700 is not enough. And beyond that, what else does the NFT do? Again, they talk about some special events, but it just seems all very vague and very exclusive. Not something that most people would be able to participate in. And so doing such an exclusive event and doing it in this manner, it really leads me to question really what was the intent here beyond grabbing some headlines. And the sad part is, considering who the partners are and considering that this is an NFT collection from a big brand like Adidas, they probably will hold their value. I can't think of too many things that would cause them to crash. There is a chance they might crash because people will realize that it's not really worth that much, but we'll see. And the final company that I want to talk about is Nike. And Nike has recently acquired a designer called, I don't even know how to pronounce this, RTFKT. If someone knows how this is meant to be pronounced, please leave it in the comments below. But I think this is probably one of the more interesting developments from big companies. And I think this is a really smart move by Nike. Nike already does a phenomenal job in managing their sneaker brands. I've just, started getting into sneaker collecting myself, and I'm learning about Air Jordans and how they move in the market. And I think, let's have a look. Let's have a look at their shoes. Right, these are some of the NFTs created by this designer. And it fits in really well with Nike's aesthetic. They obviously understand branding quite well. They seem to have their logo kind of on the side of the shoes, not very dissimilar to Nike's swoosh. And they're an NFT company first and foremost. So they live in the blockchain. They understand what's going on in the space. And I think Nike choosing to purchase them rather than trying to do something themselves shows a lot about Nike's respect for the expertise in the space. And I think it'll be really exciting to see what kind of stuff they come out with. Honestly, I personally had never heard of this company until Nike bought them, and I looked into them, and I wish I had learned about them sooner. I do actually really like the shoe designs. What I do want to understand is, again, application is a really important part for me when it comes to NFT projects and NFT investments. That's why this channel covers crypto gaming so much, because gaming NFTs can carry a lot of utility. And beyond just the CeFi DeFi component, I really love this idea of being able to take an NFT asset that you own and use it elsewhere. And that's really fascinating to me. And you know, Nike buying a company like this that has been creating NFTs and from what I can see, creating content for metaverses. So I think if we have a look here, so this was a recent project that RTFKT did with CryptoPunks. Again, I'm not happy about the exclusive nature of it, but the idea I think is phenomenal, and I'd love to see this kind of thing happen with more projects. But the idea here is they had an NFT drop, and if you owned a CryptoPunk, you could participate in the drop. You could buy in, and what's really interesting is, when you picked up your Punk shoe, you got, of course, the Punk NFT. You got a complimentary physical sneaker forging, meaning that if you bought an NFT, you got a free pair of sneakers to match your NFT. And I think that that's phenomenal. So all of a sudden, your NFT can almost start to become like a certificate of ownership. It's linked in some way to your physical shoe, and I think that that's kind of the type of things that we need to be doing to make sense of NFTs. You get a one-to-one voxel portrait, so you get a voxelized version of your CryptoPunk portrait, and again, really cool. You also get a metaverse wearable voxel file. So you get a file as part of your NFT that contains a digital wearable shoe. And if I use this, and let's say I can take this into Sandbox, or I can take this into Decentraland, wearing it on my character has a lot of meaning. It means I own a CryptoPunk, which in itself has its own meaning, but it also means that if you're familiar with the project, that you also own a pair of these shoes. And this is, again, what I mean about NFTs having meaning. And they don't necessarily have to have, straight up utility, but it's more than just an NFT for NFT's sake. This NFT is linked to other aspects that give it value, and that's being able to use it in a metaverse, having a real actual physical shoe that it's linked to, being connected to a prestigious project. These are things that make interesting and that we need to see big companies doing more of. If we have a look at their other projects, right, and I do like the design of the shoe. In fact, I would be very curious how much one of these will sell for in the physical secondary market. And again, they had a couple of other projects as well. Jeff Staple, MetaPigeon, and Space Strip. And with Jeff Staple, same thing. There's an NFT component, which I believe is the bird, and the shoe, which comes in a Decentraland format, as well as a real physical pair of shoes, which I'm really liking this. I really hope that I can pick up a pair on the next drop, and I wish I'd learned about them sooner, because I think this idea is phenomenal. Right, and I think here with Space Drip, it looks like a kind of collectible. And this is kind of where we need to see things going. At the end of the day, these are digital assets, and they don't necessarily cost much to make, and not compared to a real physical item. And being able to connect them with a real world item starts to give them interesting value. I'd love to see, for example, pop bottle bobbleheads, where if I buy a bobblehead, I get an NFT version as well. Or I can, buy a physical one, get an NFT, and I can sell or reuse them separately. I can put the virtual NFT bobblehead in one of my virtual spaces. And I think these are kind of the interesting things that we need to start seeing big companies do. Big companies that have the resources to, experiment a little bit more beyond, oh, hey, let's make this a fancy achievement. They need to start taking risks. And I think that Nike has really shown here, and Kickstarter have really shown some interesting steps in the right direction. That's all I've got to say for today. If you found this content useful, Please like and subscribe. Please leave your thoughts in the comment section below. I'd love to hear about what you think about my little talking head discourse. If you want to hear more about this kind of content, please let me know. I have a ton of ideas. If you want me to dive deeper into any of these projects, Kickstarter, especially Nike, so on, please let me know, and I'll do my best to deliver. Thanks so much for tuning in. Once again, please like and subscribe. It really helps out the channel, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.